it's a toxic, messy time. I don't know. It's fun. There's nothing else to explain there. Hey guys, what's up? It's Ashley. Welcome back to my channel, and I'm here to talk about all of the books that I read in January. If you watched my beginning of the year book tag video, you'll know that I decided for this year I'm really trying to prioritize my physical TBR by reading at least 1 to 3 physical books each month, and I did manage to read 5 this month, so I think that's a really good start. I did read 11 books overall, so let's just talk about them. The first book that I did read for the month was a physical, and it was Check and Mate by Hazelwood. This is her YA romance that came out, I think, 2 years ago, but I did enjoy this. It was cute, it was fun, it was a nice quick read, it was a great way to start the year. I did end up rating this a 3.5 just because I did feel that there were some areas of the story that fell flat, but I did really enjoy the 2 main characters, and I really did enjoy the chess aspect to it. But our story is going to follow Mallory, and Mallory is 18 and her father has passed away some time ago. She's trying to take care of her mom and her 2 younger sisters. She was a former chess prodigy, and then when her dad died, she just didn't want to go near it anymore. She works in a garage as a mechanic. She's just not making a whole lot of money. Like I said, she's really trying to help her mom and her sister stay afloat, and her best friend at the beginning of the story asks her to enter a chess competition just to help her out, and she does, and she ends up being matched with Nolan, who is like the #1 chess player in the world, and she beats him, and it totally takes him by surprise. And then you flash forward months later, and because everyone in the world has seen Mallory defeat Nolan, she ends up being offered a job to play chess. And your story is going to go from there. And like I said, it was a fun story, but there were just a few parts that were missing for me, and I'm really picky with my ratings, so solid 3.5. And then I decided to dive back into the Ice Planet Barbarian world because it's been a few years since I've read any. So I read Barbarians Touch. I think this one is the 7th one in the series, but still reads great, still enjoyable, still a fun time. So this story is going to follow Lila and Roken, and Lila is part of a small group of girls that have not been unfrozen from the ship yet. If you've read the books, you'll know what I'm talking about, but Roken is sent to bring the girls back to their tribe and all of that. And yeah, basically that's the gist of it. If you've read these books, you know, but basically it's like a soulmate type of thing. They have like this Kui parasite that is in all of them that keeps them warm on the planet, and basically their Kui tells them who their soulmate is. It sounds really weird as fuck, but if you've read the books, you'll know what I'm talking about. But Lila ends up being taken by another one of Roken's men because he is super desperate to find his soulmate, and so Roken gets really pissed and has to go track them down. But that is the story for that one. But like I said, Ice Planet Barbarians, if you know, you know. It's a fun, good time. Alright, and then I read Older by Jennifer Hartmann. I was really excited for this one because it is an age gap set in the 1990s. And if you know me, I love nostalgia. I love the 90s especially. I was born in 92, so 90s kid for life. And I love age gap romances. But I just don't know if because I'm coming off of 2024 where every new release is a slump for me and I'm just still having that mentality. But there were parts of this that were really good, and then there were parts that just fell flat. So let's talk about it. This story is going to follow Hallie and Reed, and Hallie is abused at home. Her father beats the crap out of her all the time, and her mom just doesn't do anything to step in and stop it. And one night at a party, she decides to kind of get away, go out and look at the water, and there she meets Reed. Reed is an older guy, and Hallie is not really a stranger to older men. She has experience. It's kind of how she escapes from home. And so she's attracted to him, and he's attracted to her, and they just get to talking. And then he has to go collect his daughter at the party down the beach. And then you're going to flash forward a little bit, and then you eventually find out that Reed is Hallie's best friend's father. And this is not a spoiler because it's on the back of the book. So this is going to be an age gap, forbidden, best friend's father Hallie is 18 in the book, but she is still in high school, and it is her friend's father, so of course you are going to have that forbidden aspect. But like I said, there were parts that I really enjoyed, but then there were parts that just really kind of dragged on. This is a thicker book, and I feel like there could have been stuff taken out, and I also feel like there could have been more in depth to some stuff. I don't know. It's hard to explain because it's been several weeks since I've read it, but I just don't know if it will ever be on a reread for me. I will recommend it to other people because I do think they will really like it, because like I said, I don't know if this is just a me coming off of a really frustrating 2024. I don't know. Anyway, 4 stars. It was enjoyable. It just wasn't like perfect for me. And then I picked up Her Saint by Harmony West on Kindle Unlimited. And I ended up picking up this one because I'm really, really into the obsessed hero trope, like where they will cross any line to get their girl. And this was a stalker romance, and it was a student-teacher romance where she was the teacher. So I was like, okay, totally intrigued. Let's read it. So this is part 1 in a duet. I only read the first book because it doesn't really end in a cliffhanger where like I need to pick up the next book. I probably will, just because book 1 was like 250 pages and I'm sure there's more to the story, but like they were together at the end and nothing drastic had happened. Our female main character is Briar, and Briar isn't like the teacher. She is a TA working to be a teacher in a writing workshop. She wants to be a writer. I don't know. Like I said, it was like the beginning of the month that I read this. But then we have Saint. And Saint is an award-winning author, but he goes by a pen name, so nobody knows who he is. He writes erotic horror that Briar just happens to be really into. Like, that's her favorite author. And so Saint ends up enrolling in this writing workshop because he's just hit such a writer's block and he doesn't know what to write or anything. And then he meets Briar and he becomes so obsessed with her because she becomes his muse. And so he ends up stalking her and all of that. And like I said, it was a fun time. It's part 1 in a duet, but like I said, it doesn't end in a way where you need to dive into the next book. I probably will, but just letting you know. But I did rate this one a 3.75, I think, just because like it was a fun time, but like it wasn't enough. I'm not jumping to dive into book 2 right now. I listened to the audiobook of Lights Out by Nevessa Allen. Now, I actually started the audiobook of this in December, and I'm just gonna say it took me a month to listen to because I just wasn't so into it. And that disappoints me because this was like the audiobook of the year for romance that everybody was saying to do. Now, I will say the audiobook was really cool. I definitely see why people suggested it, but I think if I was physically reading this book, I probably would have DNF'd. Just because like the story starts off very, very strong, but it drags in the middle and then it gets quick again in the end. So it was a pacing issue, definitely, but I'll just talk about the story and you guys can kind of like decide for yourself if you want to read it. We have Allie, and Allie is an ER trauma nurse, and she sees trauma all the time. Like her patients are beat and bruised and raped, and she sees these horrors all the time. And then we have Josh, and Josh is dealing with trauma from his childhood because his father was a serial killer, a very famous serial killer, and he looks exactly like his father. And so he never really can have a romantic relationship with a woman because they're always afraid that he's going to turn out exactly like his dad. So Josh has made like an OnlyFans type of account where he wears a mask, and Allie just happens to be like his #1 fan. So Allie decides one day that she wants to figure out who the guy in the mask is because, like I said, she's his #1 fan. And so Josh just happens to be the roommate of an ex-hookup of Allie's. And so she ends up asking him, hey, can your buddy Josh help me out? Because Josh is really into computers and hacking and all of that stuff. And so Josh thinks, oh, fuck, I'm going to get found out. It's a really fun game of cat and mouse. There is a lot of comedy and humor to this book too. It's like a funny dark romance. But like I said, this just kind of dragged on for me. So I think I rated it a 4 just because the audiobook was enjoyable. But if I had read the physical, probably would have DNF'd. So it's one of those complicated ratings. So it's like an asterisk 4. I don't know. Moving on. All right, this next trilogy was physical. It was on my shelf. I ended up listening to the audios, but they were free on my Hoopla, so I'm still counting it as being checked off my physical TBR because they have been read. That is the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy by Stephanie Garber. This is the spin-off trilogy to Caraval. I read that a few summers ago. Absolutely loved it. I purposely waited super long to read the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy because I wanted to wait for it to be done because I am an asshole like that. I don't like cliffhangers. I don't like waiting. Yeah, but I really, really enjoyed this. I don't want to talk too much about it, but I will talk about book 1. I think you should read Caraval first. You don't have to, but I'm really glad I did because there was a lot of world building that I was familiar with prior, and also a lot to Jax's backstory that I knew going in that I think you'll appreciate more if you had read the Caraval trilogy beforehand. But anyway, our story is going to follow Evangeline, and Evangeline is heartbroken because the man that she loves is going to marry her stepsister. So she goes to Jax, the Prince of Hearts, and she begs him to stop this wedding, do anything, and he tries to tell her why. Like, are any of these people going to be good for you and blah, blah, blah. And she's just desperate. And so she ends up getting what she wants, but she discovers that the entire wedding has been frozen in the process. Like, all of the people are frozen. And she's like, this is not what I meant. And because she's such a good person, she decides to sacrifice herself for everyone else. And so she ends up becoming frozen so the wedding can continue on. Some time passes and Evangeline is unfrozen, and then that is when she is brought into the royal courts and everything by our 2 royal sisters from the first trilogy. That's why I think it's important to read that. And they have a mission for Evangeline. They need her to track down Jax and look for something. And that's basically the setup I'm going to give you. But also, Jax is dealing with a broken heart because if you had read the Caraval trilogy, you will know that he had a chance for love. Now, also, I will say that if you haven't read the Caraval trilogy, but you kind of want to pick this one up, what makes this story really interesting is that Jax cannot kiss anyone. He is a fate, and with his whole thing, it is said that he can only kiss his one true love. Every other girl will die. There will only be one girl that he didn't kiss. And so if you haven't read Caraval and you want to, I don't want to talk about all that because it's a spoiler and stuff like that, but it sets up Jax's story perfectly for this trilogy. But it was so much fun. I binged the hell out of these audiobooks. I think I got through all of them within like 4 days, but such a fun fantasy. I'm definitely glad that I picked up a fantasy. It has been such a long time. And then I read This Man by Jodi Allen Malpas on Kindle Unlimited. This is an older story. I believe it was published like 2013, maybe even before that. Now, I was on such an obsessed billionaire kick at the end of December. One of my top reads was from there. I read some really great books at the end of the month that followed this trope, and I wanted more. And so I went on a deep dive, and I ended up finding this trilogy, and oh, it was so good. I haven't finished book 3 yet, so I did finish the first 2. But basically, we follow Ava and Jesse. Ava is an interior designer, and at the beginning of the story, she has been personally requested to renovate a castle-turned-hotel. When she arrives, she meets Jesse, the CEO of this castle, and when Jesse meets Ava, he instantly becomes attracted to her and obsessed with her, and he is going to do anything to get her. What made this one super interesting and unique was that Jesse was so panic possessed. Like, if Ava wouldn't answer her phone because she went into the shower, he was freaking out. Now, I know a lot of people don't like those in books. However, I think it's fun. When I am slumping really, really hard, I really love to read the romance books where it's an MMC you are never going to want in real life, okay? The most unhinged, off the rails, batshit crazy, obsessive guy, those are going to be a fun time that gets me out of a slump and helps. And Jesse was totally that way. Like I said, this man was panicking every time she was not in his vicinity. And it is a trilogy. Like I said, I'm halfway through book 3, but It's also one of those relationships where these two are so fucking toxic. They fight all the time, but then they are like they cry and break down when they're not together. So she's equally a problem, but it's a toxic, messy time. I don't know. It's fun. There's nothing else to explain there. And for the last read of the month, I'm actually kind of mad because I have not finished a book since. And this was like January 23rd or something that I finished this book. And so it was really good, but it has put me in a slump where I'm just slumping. I don't know. It's a fanfic, all right? So do not knock fanfics if you haven't tried them. It is an original fanfic, and it is historical, and it is absolutely amazing. And if you love historical romances, I really highly suggest you go give this one a look. So it is called Lassoed Hearts by Deathsdoll. This is just a cover I made because I like pretty things to look at on my Kindle, and AO3, they just have like the files and stuff. But this is going to be a historical romance about an outlaw who kidnaps a girl traveling from the northern East Coast out west to California to her fiance. It's gonna be a dark historical romance, and I just think that's what made it so much fun. I did used to read a lot of historical romances, and then I just stopped completely. And this is a year that I want to get back into them because it's been helping with my slump. But this put me in even more of a slump, so I don't know what the point of that was. Anyway, so this is going to follow Arabella, and Arabella is from Rhode Island, and like I said, she's traveling on a train out west to her fiance to California. She's so excited. She's been in love with him for a really long time, and she's ready to start their lives. While the train is traveling, it gets stopped by Frank and his gang, and Frank is described as friendly Frank, like he will never attack a woman, do anything bad with her, anything like that. When Frank meets Arabella on this train, he becomes very, very mesmerized by her and wants to see her again. So he and his gang end up following her and stalking her from town to town. Like she can see him from a distance watching her, and then it eventually ends up where he will come and take her. Now, the reason I said that he is friendly Frank and he will never do anything with a woman is because he totally disregards all of that with Arabella. He wants her, he needs to have her. Now, other parts that I absolutely loved about this story was this is truly one of those true love conquers all books. This is one of those stories where both of our male character and our female main character are equally obsessed with each other and are absolutely torn and broken apart when they are not together, and they make sacrifices to make the other one happy, and they are going to go through the ringer because obviously Arabella's family and her fiance, they're not going to just sit back and let her go. So it's a really fun story. If you like historical romances, I really highly suggest you go give this one a look. I had never read an original fanfic before. I did used to read Wattpad like a decade ago, like back in college and stuff, maybe over a decade ago. Okay, anyway. Yeah, but this was fun, and it did cause me to download more original fanfics. So kind of be expecting me to talk more about that this year. But this was just so good. Now, you're not supposed to rate fanfics, so I did not rate this, but I can easily tell you this is going to be one of my favorite reads of the year. Just superb. All right, well, that is the 11 books that I read for the month of January. I hope February I can start reading again and find something to get me out of this slump. My problem is that when I find a really, really spectacular book, I try to replicate it and find another one. And we can't do that, right? But I have been looking for more historical westerns. It's not something I had ever read before. And I like them. I like the whole outlaw thing. It's fun. It got me playing Red Dead Redemption 2 again last week. I don't know. I'm kind of on a cowboy kick, but a historical cowboy kick. Anyways, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.